The Galactic Academy's most prestigious xenobiology program had never admitted a human before. When Maya Chen received her acceptance letter, the accompanying documentation made several things abundantly clear. She would be monitored at all times, her movements restricted, and her seating assignment would be in the back corner of every lecture hall, away from the civilized species. The reasoning was simple, according to Chancellor Vextai of the Hegemony Council. Humans were unpredictable, violent. Their recent emergence onto the galactic stage had been marked by a series of military victories that defied all conventional wisdom about warfare. How could a species barely 2 centuries into space travel defeat the veteran fleets of the Dominion? How could their crude technology consistently outperform elegant Etherian engineering? The answer, the Council concluded, was humanity's inherent savagery. Maya had grown accustomed to the stares during her first semester. The way Professor Clithen would pause mid-lecture when she raised her hand, his crystalline form flickering with what she'd learned was anxiety. The manner in which her Zephyrian classmates would subtly shift their seats forward whenever she entered the room, their gossamer wings creating a gentle barrier between themselves and the human. She sat alone in the back corner of Advanced Evolutionary Biology, scribbling notes while Professor Clithen droned about genetic adaptation patterns. The lecture was routine until he posed a question to the class. Can anyone explain why the Vorthon species failed to develop space travel despite having superior intelligence to most galactic civilizations? Tentacles waved eagerly. Crystalline. Forms chimed with harmonic frequencies. The professor selected Zarathul, a promising Etherian student whose academic record was flawless. The Vorthons were too peaceful, Zarathul resonated through the translation matrix. Their pacifistic nature prevented them from developing the aggressive technologies necessary for space exploration. Partially correct, Professor Clithen acknowledged. However, you're missing a crucial element. The Vorthons possessed the intellectual capacity and even developed theoretical frameworks for interstellar travel. What stopped them was fear, Maya said quietly from the back corner. The entire lecture hall fell silent. Professor Clethen's form flickered rapidly, definitely anxiety now, mixed with something else. Curiosity, perhaps? Elaborate, Miss Chen. Maya felt 200 alien eyes focusing on her. She'd learned to recognize the various expressions of discomfort her presence generated, but this felt different, attentive rather than dismissive. The Vorthons didn't lack aggression, she continued, her voice growing stronger. They were terrified of what they might find out there. Their historical records show they detected signs of spacefaring civilizations centuries before they developed their own theoretical frameworks. They chose not to pursue space travel because they were afraid of encountering species more aggressive than themselves. Professor Clithen's form stabilized into what Maya had learned, indicated deep thought. And your evidence for this theory? The Nexus archives contain fragments of Vorthon communication networks from their pre-contact period. They explicitly debated whether achieving space travel would paint them as a threat to established galactic powers. They chose extinction over the risk of being perceived as aggressive. The lecture hall remained silent, but Maya noticed something she'd never seen before. Several students had turned in their seats to face her directly, not out of wariness, but genuine interest. Professor Clithen's form began to pulse with what the translation matrix indicated was excitement. You've been accessing the Nexus archives? Every night for 6 months, Maya admitted. I've been trying to understand why so many promising civilizations choose isolation over expansion. The pattern repeats across dozens of species. And your conclusion? Maya stood slowly, aware that her movement caused the usual ripple of tension through the class. But for the first time, not everyone was preparing to flee. The galaxy is full of civilizations that destroyed themselves or chose stagnation because they were afraid of being seen as aggressive. They equated expansion with conquest, exploration with invasion. Meanwhile, the species that did achieve galactic prominence, like the hegemony, the dominion, the Etherian collective, they succeeded, precisely because they weren't afraid of being perceived as aggressive. A Zephyrian student, Whisper of Dawn, turned completely around in her seat. Are you saying humans succeeded because you don't fear your own aggression? Maya considered the question carefully. Around her, she could feel the shift in the room's atmosphere. The usual undercurrent of fear was being replaced by something she'd never experienced here. Respect. I'm saying humans succeeded because we never saw aggression and curiosity as mutually exclusive, she replied. Every species in this room evolved to survive. Humans just never pretended that survival was a gentle process. Professor Clithen's form brightened to an almost blinding intensity. Class, I believe we need to restructure our understanding of evolutionary pressure dynamics. Miss Chen, would you be willing to present your research to the Advanced Council next week? Maya looked around the lecture hall. Half the class had turned to face her now. Their various forms of attention focused not on monitoring a potential threat, but on engaging with a peer. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she felt like she belonged in the conversation rather than being merely tolerated within it. I'd be honored, Professor. As the lecture concluded and students began filing out, Maya noticed several classmates approaching her corner rather than avoiding it. Whisper of Dawn reached her first, her gossamer wings flickering with what Maya had learned indicated friendly curiosity. Would you be willing to study together? The Zephyrian asked. I have questions about human perspectives on evolutionary pressures. Maya smiled, gathering her notes. They'd made her sit in the back to keep her isolated, to minimize her influence on the civilized species. Instead, they'd given her the perfect position to observe everything, to understand the dynamics they'd never bothered to explain. Now, half the class was turning toward her corner, not out of fear, but because they'd realized that sometimes the most valuable perspectives come from those forced to watch from the margins. The human in the back row had become the focal point of the entire class, and for the first time since humanity had joined the galactic community, it was for all the right reasons.